Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
So today, we are wading into some waters that are, well, let's just say they are incredibly choppy.
Yeah, definitely heavy.
Very heavy. We're doing a deep dive into a book that has been on a lot of people's radar, usually for the wrong reasons. We are looking at The First Survivor, Life with Canada's Deadliest Mass Shooter by Lisa Banfield.
It's a title that carries an immense amount of weight, especially if you live in Canada.
Right, and I will be totally honest with you, when I first picked this up, I was kind of bracing myself for a standard true crime procedural.
Oh, sure, a timeline of the event.
Exactly. You see the title, the event, April 2020 in Nova Scotia, and you just expect a minute-by-minute breakdown of the shooting. Or maybe, I don't know, a psychological profile of the killer from a distance. But that is absolutely not what this book is.
Not at all. And that is a really crucial distinction we have to make right at the top of this deep dive. This is not a book about those 13 hours of terror that the general public knows about.
Right.
It's actually about the 19 years that led up to it. It's a memoir about intimate partner violence, about coercive control, survival, and really what happens when the person you love slowly transforms into a literal monster.
And monster is the exact word Lisa uses. But I think the scary part and the real mission for our deep dive today is that monsters don't usually start out breathing fire, right?
No, they don't.
They start out charming. They start out helpful.
Yeah.
And we really want to understand that slide. How does a smart, capable woman, because Lisa was running a business, she was capable, how does she end up trapped? And then how does she survive, only to have the system turn on her when she finally escapes?
That is the core question here. People always tend to ask, why didn't she just leave?
Ugh, the worst question.
It is. But this book forces us to ask entirely different questions, like why did he make it impossible for her to leave, and how on earth did she survive? To understand any of that, we can't just start with the shooting.
No, we have to go back.
Way back, to the beginning, to the Banfield clan.
I actually really loved this part of the book. It starts in Beaver Bank, Nova Scotia. And the picture she paints of her childhood is just, it's this chaotic love.
Chaotic is definitely the right word for it. We are talking about a family with 9 children.
9.
2 parents, 9 kids, all crammed into a house that was about 900 square feet.
I actually did the math on that while I was reading, and I am pretty sure my closet is bigger than the personal space any of those kids had.
Oh, absolutely.
She actually compares them to the Beverly Hillbillies at one point.
Yeah.
Just this massive, loud, super tight-knit crew trucking up Quarry Road. Yeah. But they did not have money.
No, money was incredibly tight. And there's this specific detail she shares that just really stuck with me. In the winter, they would wear empty bread bags inside their boots to keep their feet dry.
Because the boots leaked.
Because the boots leaked.
Bread bags. I mean, that is such a specific visceral memory. It just screams resilience. It's that us against the world mentality where you just make do with what you have.
Exactly. And that family bond, especially her relationship with her sister Maureen, that becomes the absolute bedrock of her life. But there is a crack in the foundation early on, a massive one.
Yeah.
The book highlights a critical trauma when she was just 14 years old, and it really sets the stage for her future vulnerability.
This was the part where I actually had to put a book down for a second. It is just so heavy. She was babysitting for a neighbor, trusted adult in her community.
Right.
And this man molested her.
It's a horrific violation of trust.
Yeah.
But when you look at it in the context of how she ends up with Gabriel later on, the most damaging part wasn't just the act itself. It was the reaction when she tried to get help.
Right. She works up the courage to tell her father.
Yeah.
And you have to put yourself in her shoes. Imagine this 14-year-old girl. She is terrified. She is ashamed. And she is looking for her protector to step in and do something. And his response is literally 3 words.
Yeah. Is that all?
Is that all? Can you even imagine hearing that?
It is devastating. And those 3 words just completely dismantled her sense of self-worth. It taught her, at a very formative age, that her safety was just an inconvenience.
That her trauma didn't matter.
Exactly. And psychologically, that creates a vulnerability that predators can spot a mile away. Because if your own father doesn't think you are worth protecting, you start to believe that you aren't worth protecting.
And she carries that exact I don't matter energy right into her adult life. She talks a bit about her early life. She had a first love named David. She went through the tragic death of her beloved sister Joan. And she had a failed first marriage to a guy who was an alcoholic.
Which kind of mimicked her father's behavior, honestly.
It did. So she is drifting, she is vulnerable, she is looking for someone to just really see her. And then she walks into a bar in Dartmouth.
The meet cute.
The meet cute.
It is almost a cliche, isn't it? She is out dancing with her sister Maureen, and there he is, Gabriel Wortman. He's tall, blue-eyed, charming, super attentive.
He buys her a drink. He really listens to her. He calls her later that night. And they end up talking on the phone until 3 in the morning. I mean, it is the whirlwind romance. It's exactly the kind of thing every rom-com tells you that you should be looking for.
But this is where we have to pause and talk about the concept of grooming. Because abusive relationships, they don't start with a punch.
Right.
They start with a pedestal. He put her up there. He made her feel incredibly special. And then, very slowly, the control started creeping in. He started isolating her.
And it really started with their business. They opened the Atlantic Denture Clinic together. And if you looked at them on paper, they were this total power couple. He was the denturist and she ran the lab.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality inside those clinic walls was completely different.
It was essentially financial abuse disguised as a business partnership. Lisa was in the back doing all the grunt work, prepping the molds, cleaning, dealing with the patients. Gabriel was just the face of the operation.
But he controlled every single dime.
Every dime. He took the credit, he took the cash, and Lisa was manipulated into feeling like she was just lucky to be along for the ride.
And she stayed, which is where a lot of people reading this or hearing this might get stuck. They ask, why stay?
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa introduces a psychological concept in the book that I think is absolutely vital for you, the listener, to understand. We all know about fight or flight.
Sure.
But she talks about fawning.
Yes, fawning. It is a trauma response that is so often overlooked. You can think of it as people-pleasing on steroids.
Wow, yeah.
It's when you basically merge your own needs with the abuser's needs just to avoid conflict. You turn into a chameleon, you anticipate their moods, you agree with whatever they say, and you try to be absolutely perfect so that they won't get angry.
She writes something like, my fawning default may have been the perfect pheromone for my ill-fated relationship. She was basically constantly managing his emotions for him just to keep herself safe.
But the safety was a total illusion, and that illusion completely shattered at Sutherland Lake.
This is a few years into the relationship, right?
Yeah, they are at a party.
And the request she makes of him is so completely normal. She says, hey, if we go to this, you drive, because I want to actually have a drink for once. She just wanted one single night off from being the designated driver and the caretaker.
And he agrees to it. But then, of course, he drinks anyway. And when she calls him out on it, when she tries to assert just a tiny, tiny bit of autonomy, he snaps.
He literally attacks her in his Jeep, punches her repeatedly. And this is the foreshadowing that honestly gave me chills. She manages to escape the car, and she runs into the woods to hide behind a tree.
It is the exact same survival mechanism she has to use years later.
Exactly. But this time he catches her, he drags her back to the vehicle by her hair, and then the classic cycle of abuse continues. She leaves him, she moves in with her sister, but he does what they call hoovering. He sucks her back in.
Right. He cries, he apologizes, he blames the alcohol.
And because she is a fawner, and because she so desperately wants to believe the best in him, she goes back.
And once she is back, things start getting weird.
Yeah.
Like objectively, bizarrely weird. We have to talk about the paranoia and the hoarding.
Yes.
Gabriel wasn't just an abusive, controlling partner. He was an anti-government survivalist. He was paranoid about the government. He didn't trust the banks.
He buried money. Lisa describes sitting on their bed with him, counting out $750,000 in cash. $750,000.
And then putting it in a Cabela's bag, of all things.
A Cabela's bag.
A hunting gear bag.
Right.
And burying it under the deck of their cottage.
It sounds like a bad movie plot, but this was her actual everyday reality.
And it really highlights his extreme isolationism. And when the early days of COVID-19 hit in 2020, that paranoia just went into absolute overdrive. He was stockpiling gas, food, ammo.
Oh, yeah.
He was constantly telling Lisa, it's just you and me against the world. He had finally successfully cut her off from almost everyone else.
Which brings us to the night, April 18, 2020, the night of fire. The night everything completely changed. It was actually their 19th anniversary.
Right. It was supposed to be a normal day, a celebration. They're hanging out at their warehouse in Portapeak, which he had basically turned into this massive man cave with a bar. They are having a few drinks, but then a FaceTime call acts as the trigger.
It is over such a small thing. They're talking to their friends, Sean and Angel, and Lisa just casually mentions that they might have a commitment ceremony for their 20th anniversary next year.
Yeah.
And Angel, either jokingly or seriously, says, don't do it.
And that is it. That is the spark. Gabriel feels humiliated. He feels judged by his friends, and once that call ends, the mask comes off completely.
He snaps. He drags her out of bed. He assaults her. And the psychological cruelty of what he says while he is doing it, he tells her, "You stubborn bitch, you got a little Beulah and Gilly in you."
Comparing her to her parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is attacking her core identity, her family, while he is literally cracking her ribs.
But this time, the rage is different than before. It is cold. It is incredibly calculated. He starts pouring gasoline everywhere. He sets their cottage on fire, his own dream home. And when Lisa tries to use her old survival tactic, the fawning, it completely fails.
Yeah, she offers to take the blame for the fire to try and stop him. She says, "I'll tell the police I did it. Just stop."
And he just looks at her and says, "It's too late."
It's too late.
He knows he has crossed a line he can't uncross. He drags her back to the warehouse. He handcuffs her, and then he forces her into the car. But we really need to pause here because this is not just any car.
No, it's the replica RCMP cruiser.
Exactly.
He had spent months secretly outfitting a Ford Taurus to look exactly like a Canadian police car. It had the decals, the lights, the plexiglass cage in the back.
It is the ultimate symbol of power and coercive control. He is literally impersonating the exact authority figure she would normally call to rescue her. He puts her in the back seat, handcuffed, and he has guns and ammo in there. And he tells her his plan.
He tells her he is going to drive to her sister's house and kill her family.
Which is the ultimate threat for a controller. If you try to leave, I will kill everyone you love. But the terrifying difference tonight is that he is actually initiating it.
This is the absolute climax of her survival story.
Sure.
She is trapped in the back of that fake police car. Gabriel is momentarily distracted because he is busy setting the warehouse on fire. Lisa knows in her bones this is it. If she stays in that car, she dies, and her sister dies.
So she starts working frantically on the handcuffs, and her description in the book is just so visceral.
It really is.
She has to force her hand to slip out. She's literally tearing the skin and flesh off her wrist and hand. She is bleeding. She's in absolute agony, but the pure adrenaline just pushes her through it.
She gets one hand free. But then there is the plexiglass partition between the back seat and the front. It is a police cage. It is literally designed so you cannot get through it.
But she manages to find a small opening, a tiny little window in the partition.
And she squeezes through it. She is literally contorting her body in a way that just defies logic, crawling into the front seat while he is right outside. She bolts. She runs out of the warehouse, past the flames, and just disappears into the freezing woods.
Barefoot.
Barefoot, in April, in Nova Scotia.
It is freezing.
She is wearing yoga pants and a thin, light shirt. It is unbelievably cold.
And this begins the whole survival in the woods chapter of her life. Imagine the sensory overload she's experiencing. She is going into hypothermia. She manages to find a hiding spot in the hollow of an uprooted tree trunk and just crawls inside. She even pulls her yoga pants down over her bare feet to try and stave off frostbite.
And all night long, she is just hearing the horror. She hears the explosions from the fire. She hears the gunshots. She knows Gabriel is out there.
Yeah.
She doesn't know he is moving through the community, killing their neighbors, but she knows he is hunting.
And there is one moment she describes that is straight out of a horror movie. She is huddled in that freezing tree root, just clutching a rock for protection. And she hears whistling in the dark. And then she hears Gabriel's voice sounding completely calm, just say, "Hey, boys."
Oh, my God.
He was right there. He was actively hunting her in the pitch black.
That is just pure psychological torture. She spends the entire night utterly convinced that every snapping twig is him coming to finish the job.
But she makes it. The sun finally comes up. She crawls out of that hole, freezing, battered, and she makes her way to a neighbor's house, Leon Jodry.
Yes, and this interaction with Leon, it is tragic, but it is also so bizarrely, quintessentially human. She is banging on his door, and she finally gasps out, "Gabriel lost it."
And Leon just looks at her and replies, "No shit, he's burned down his own house, Lisa."
It's almost absurd, right? No shit. But then the SWAT team finally arrives, and as a reader, you take a breath and think, okay, she is safe, the bad guy is gone, the nightmare is over.
If only, because for Lisa Banfield, a completely different kind of nightmare was just getting started.
This is the part of the deep dive that legitimately made me so angry. She is rescued. She is put in a police vehicle. She is in deep shock. She is hypothermic.
Yeah.
And the police interrogation begins almost immediately.
It is a massive critical failure point by the authorities. Lisa is taken to the hospital. She is medicated for severe pain. She has just barely escaped a mass murderer. And instead of sending in, say, a victim services officer,
Right.
the RCMP sends in Staff Sergeant Vardy, and his official title is a truth verification expert.
A polygraph guy.
Essentially, yes. His entire job is to detect deception. Because the police were operating on this wild assumption that she might be an accomplice, they are interrogating her aggressively while she is literally lying in a hospital bed, terrified that Gabriel is going to burst through the hospital doors at any second.
Because she didn't even know he was still out there.
Oh?
While they were grilling her, Gabriel was still active. He killed 22 people in total. She was his first target, but she was definitely not the last. And the police didn't even realize it yet.
And the system's abuse of her didn't stop there. Months later, the police actually forced her to go back to the burned-out site in Porta Peak. They wanted a video reenactment of her escape.
Which is just wild to me.
They literally did not believe she could fit through that tiny car window. They wanted her to physically prove she wasn't lying.
It feels so incredibly cruel. It's like, dance for us. Show us your trauma to prove you aren't a criminal.
Exactly. And while she is there at the site, trying to have just a quiet moment of closure, trying to say goodbye to the ashes of her life, a drone appears right overhead.
Was it a police drone?
No, it was a media drone or some looky-loo with a camera. It was buzzing right over her head. Lisa and her sisters literally had to run back into the woods again just to hide from it. It perfectly illustrates how her privacy was completely stripped away. She became public property.
And then comes the charge. This was the twist that shocked the entire country. The RCMP actually charged Lisa Banfield. Not for the shooting, obviously, but they charged her, her brother, and her brother-in-law with transferring ammunition.
Right. It was a total technicality. Years prior to the event, she had passed Gabriel some bullets, which is something that happens in rural hunting households all the time. But you have to look at the context. The RCMP was facing massive, massive public backlash for their failure to stop Gabriel that night.
Yeah, they missed warnings. They didn't send out the emergency alert.
Exactly. They looked completely incompetent.
So they desperately needed a scapegoat.
And that is exactly the conclusion the Mass Casualty Commission later came to during the public inquiry. They officially called it re-victimization. They heavily criticized the RCMP, suggesting they deflected blame onto Lisa just to take the public heat off themselves. Just imagine that. You survive a mass murderer, you escape a fire, you hide in the freezing woods barefoot, and then your own government charges you.
It's unbelievable. And it sends such an incredibly dangerous message to other victims of domestic violence. It basically says, hey, if you survive the monster, we might prosecute you anyway.
It does. But Lisa stood her ground, and this is where the real resilience of her story shines through. She did not crumble. The charges against her were eventually dismissed through restorative justice, but much more importantly, the public inquiry completely vindicated her.
Yes, they did.
They officially stated on the record that she was a victim of long-term abuse. She was not an accomplice in any way. She was officially the first survivor.
And after all that, she had to somehow reclaim her life. There is this incredibly powerful scene at the very end of the book where she finally lets go. It's the 5th anniversary of the shooting.
Yeah, April 18th, 2025.
She takes her phone, which has thousands and thousands of photos on it. Memories of 19 years, the cottage, the parties, all those smiles that were hiding the bruises. And she just hits delete.
Click. Gone. She wipes the slate completely clean.
And the ashes, too. She had actually kept Gabriel's ashes in a box. Which, maybe that was out of a sense of obligation, or maybe it was just that lingering trauma bond, but she takes them out and she scatters them. She physically finally lets him go.
It is such a symbolic end to his control over her. She writes so beautifully about going from that fawning victim, the woman who would do absolutely anything to keep the peace, to a woman who stood up to a public inquiry and the police to tell her truth. She even faced the families of the victims, some of whom openly hated her, and she said, I am sorry for your loss. That takes immense courage.
It really, really does. It is a profound story of resilience, but it's also a mirror for us as a society.
It is. Lisa's story forces us to stop asking that terrible question, why didn't she leave, and start asking, why did he do this, and why didn't our system stop him? Lisa Banfield was essentially the canary in the coal mine. Her private abuse was the direct precursor to a massive public tragedy.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means understanding that abuse isn't always a black eye. You can look like a really successful business partner. It can look like the perfect couple hosting a party at their cottage. But behind closed doors, there is fear and fawning and desperate survival.
And it means we need to extend a lot more grace. Lisa was vilified largely because she survived. Think about the darkness of that. People were angry she lived when their loved ones died. That is such a heavy burden for one woman to carry. Her book is really a plea for empathy, not just for herself, but for all the women who are currently hiding in plain sight.
It's a tough read, but an incredibly important one. The First Survivor by Lisa Banfield.
And just a reminder to always listen to your gut. As Lisa says in her epilogue, her vet told her to leave many, many times over those 19 years. She really hopes her story helps others listen to theirs a lot sooner.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We've talked a lot today about how Gabriel controlled Lisa, but think about how the institutions acted afterwards. What if the systems we rely on to protect victims are actually, at their core, built primarily to protect themselves? When the police failed, their first instinct wasn't to shield the survivor, but to shift the blame to her to save face. Next time you see a public narrative placing the blame on a survivor, ask yourself, what institutional failure is that blame trying to cover up?
That is a really unsettling but very necessary question to ask.
A powerful place to leave it. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge, spread the word.